Stream of today's show right now at 560theanswer.com.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Bob Conway, President, Charles Equipment Energy Systems.
On AM 560.
The only thing we do are things that suck, squeeze, bang, and blow.
Wow, we'll be right back.
The Answer.
Bruce Wolf and Carol Roth in for Dan and Amy. And just cleaning up a couple of things here, Carol. Remember earlier in the show I had said, Julian Assange, is he guilty of anything? Or does New York Times and the Pentagon Papers cover everything? And he's a journalist and he goes off scot-free even though he was dragged out of the embassy like he was Dr. Dow from the United Airlines flight. And I had mentioned that Andy McCarthy of National Review, the esteemed Andy McCarthy, who you can see on Fox all the time, he's the legal expert, had said, well, really the issue boils down to the congressional definition of the statutory definition of terrorism.
Correct.
And so I actually asked Andy on Twitter about that because I wondered if the definition of terrorism was way too broad and might be unconstitutional because it just mentioned coercing the government.
And did he tweet you back?
Andy tweeted me back.
That's so cool,
I mean,
Bruce.
that's Andy McCarthy tweeting
He
me
tweeted you back.
Yeah, because, see, I've got clout with it's the whole point. You understand the sub silencio point is that I'm making here is that Andy McCarthy.
You're kind of a big deal.
He answers me. I'm the
kind
epicenter.
Of a big deal. You ask a question. So what did he say?
So he said, Bruce, coerce the government is a pretty common explanation of terrorism. Coerce is a word like obstruct. A person does not need to succeed in order to be guilty of doing it. The idea is the terrorist tries to extort or pressure the government to alter policy. But again, my question is it constitutional? But thank you, Andy, for tweeting back to me.
And I still think the hacking situation is an issue as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that you're going to be working with Dan on Monday.
Yes.
Okay. And
looking forward to
you
it.
don't be intimidated by his big vocabulary because I taught him to use the word fungible. Not that he didn't know what it meant.
I have an Ivy League education. I think
sure,
we'll be able to.
But you didn't
it.
know what QED stood for.
I'm not a lawyer.
Okay,
so.
but QED, which is something that Dan uses, and I think Steve on 88, I think, who told us of this, it essentially means that which was to be demonstrated. And you usually put it at the end of a mathematical proof. So if he throws QED, just tell him, oh, you mean quod erat demonstrandum or something, well, whatever. All right.
I will brush up on my Latin over the weekend.
Will you brush up on your golf over the weekend? Because the Masters is going on right now, and we are pleased to be joined. And I may have to recuse myself from the discussion, and you may actually have to conduct the interview because I
Are you
know.
Conflicted?
Well, yes, I am conflicted because Joe Bosco's a friend of mine. Hi, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. First off, Carol, how are you guys?
I got to ask Joe, are you actually a friend of his, or is he just throwing that out there?
No, actually, we go back a little bit.
Joe has been a golf instructor for many years. He's at Joe Bosco Golf right now. He's the playing lesson pro. And make sure that we, hype whatever website you have or anything like that, Joe, before we're done. But I took golf lessons from Joe, and when I broke 80 for the first time, which was only on July 14th, 2001, not like anybody would know the date.
Approximately at 8:37 in the morning.
Joe it's a Pine Meadow Golf Course. He calls the Tribune because he knows people. And I get in a media column, that I broke 80. Well, the next week I go to Pine Meadow and everybody on the driving range is going, oh, Mr. 79, look who's walking by. It took me like 10 years later.
To get past that.
Thanks, Joe, for nothing.
You're welcome.
So,
well, wait, but there's another highlight you have to post about in that. Didn't you have an ace, a hole-in-one?
In front of Dan Proft.
Wow.
Yes,
exactly.
In front of Dan Proft, I got a hole-in-one.
And I'm assuming this is all due to the wonderful schooling of Joe.
Joe is fantastic. And, Joe, we want to talk about the Masters. All right,
yes,
so here's the whole thing. Brooks Koepka, last I saw, was leading after yesterday's round. Brandel Chambly. Okay, we're getting a little into the weeds on this, into the second cut of rough. He said that Koepka had lost too much weight for this vanity photo shoot that he was doing. He lost 24 pounds. He wasn't having a good season. And now, of course, he's won 2 out of the last 3 majors, and he was leading the Masters after the first round. You'd think that Brandel Chambly would eat crow. Instead, he's doubling down, according to my sources, and saying, you're not defined by how many majors you win. Actually, you are defined by how many majors you win.
Isn't that the literal definition?
Joe?
Yeah, Really? Well, I know Brandel, and he is kind of like the heir apparent to Johnny Miller, where he's going to say stuff, it's going to get controversial, but he's always going to be talked about, whether it's good or bad. He's always in there saying
It's the
something that stirs the pot.
Trump of golf.
Totally. He's very smart. Chambly is smart. All right, so, Joe, when you watched the Masters yesterday, I mean, from your viewpoint, because, I mean, Joe's so good. Joe would, when he was giving you a lesson, he'd say, look at my biceps. They're not really there. And I'm hitting it, 5,000 yards. And then I would hit it, 45 feet. But, Joe, what did you see there yesterday when you were watching?
Well, the biggest part of my mix of what I do is mental performance coaching, and it really transcends golf. I do it in other sports with professional athletes and college athletes and business people now. The mindset is what you really, that's what everything that goes on in the Masters is the biggest deal. Right? Everybody there wants to win it, and they don't normally. A lot of them don't bring the same mindset to that tournament that they bring to any other, and sometimes it really screws them up. But yesterday, what happens is Brooks Koepka played later in the day, and so did Bryson DeChambeau,
Sure.
And these guys got to see the rest of the field. It was a fairly benign day weather-wise, which really makes a difference. When the wind's not blowing at Augusta, and I've played there, and I've been there to watch the tournament.
What'd you shoot? What'd you shoot, Joe? What'd you shoot at Augusta?
You want the honest truth? I shot an 83.
It's not bad.
I parred Amen Corner. There were 2 inches of rain the day before, and the greens were twice as slow as I would have expected them. I could never get the golf ball to the hole. Anyway, but what happens is those guys are so talented, but they're comfortable with who they are. And being comfortable just saying, hey, I'm going to go out and be me and play my golf game and not trying. I think clearly the guys who pressed yesterday and it didn't work for them were Rose and Spieth. These guys are talented enough to win. They have won.
But Spieth, let me interrupt you, Joe. Spieth has not been good lately, but he was horrible yesterday. And the guy who choked, you're Joe Bosco, the mental master. I get this. I'll get this. Isn't Rory pressing? Isn't that why he didn't perform that well yesterday?
Sure. Well, the jinx was on him because everybody's saying, well, he's at the top of his game. He's the one that to watch, and then he didn't quite bring it. Now, today is going to be a huge day. Obviously, the rain's there, and it's softer, and if there's not much wind, but it's softer, well, then there's going to be a lot of opportunity to go at flags. That golf course really is, and everybody says who goes there for the first time, it's so much more undulating, and there's so much more to it than you could ever imagine, and it's just such a special place. It really is.
So, Joe, from a mental standpoint, what's the top thing that you end up telling golfers on a consistent basis? What's the big mental issue that's the block to improving their game?
So the biggest thing really about the whole point of view on the mental side is that most people, if you're having any kind of concrete or verbal conversation with yourselves as you're walking into the shot and when you're stepping over the ball, addressing it and making your swing, if there's thoughts percolating that you're conscious of, the odds are you're not going to tap the coordinated skill that you have. Now, that's been documented through functional MRI studies at the University of Chicago, as well as there's a technology that a number of those guys you watch today have used this technology that I was the beta tester for in this country.
Really? You and the Dalai Lama, I think. It was the Dalai Lama, right? Total consciousness we're talking about. Yeah.
Well, you're exactly right. But here's what it's a mind-sensing headband that goes underneath a hat or in a hat. And it's an EEG monitor. It does some other things as well.
Oh, my God.
So it's like Alexa for your head. Alexa,
that's exactly right.
What's going to happen to this swing?
Well,
Alexa, stop playing the Grateful Dead in my head right now. Can you...
Exactly. Well, so I was out at the BMW a couple of years ago when both Jason Day, who won the tournament that year, and Justin Rose were using it in the practice round.
Oh, really?
So it's on the golf course, and I'll bet you there's more than 24 players that you're watching today that have used that. And I use that today. I use that with business people to help them focus and concentrate.
I need that before I go to bed. I need that when I'm in bed to tell me to shut up.
Joe, you're not going to give me 20 extra yards on my the way I need to get 20 extra yards on my 7-iron is to get more forward shaft lean. right?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, but not to some
It's a trap.
EEG. Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, it is interesting that people, when they get calmer and less thoughtful consciously, their golf swings work better. The golf club goes a little faster, and you make more putts too. But let's talk about what is the key. What is going to be the key to this whole tournament? Is it distance? Is it short game? Is it putting? And
No.
Well, that's right. But I'll tell you what, I think prayer.
Sure.
That's going to be the biggest.
I'm sure I'm going to be praying when I go to the 12th hole if I'm at AM corner and I start channeling my inner Jordan Spieth and hit 2 in the water. Let me ask you a final question about this. What's the big deal about Koepka leading the tournament? He was only beating a 48-year-old guy by 1 stroke, i.e. Phil Mickelson. So what's the big deal, right?
Well, yeah. And, historically, if you look at the stats, people who are at the top of the leaderboard on Friday tend pretty high percentage, tend not to play so well today. So that's going to be an interesting story to watch today. And everybody needs to get that Masters app, which is free because it's so fabulous. You get to really see what's going on if you can't get near a television.
So if we go to Joe Bosco Golf, right, online?
You'd bet. Yeah, actually, you'd best to email me at joeboscogolf@gmail.com.
Okay.
That's the best way to get a.
All right, you seduced me again. You're going to be plugging me like Frankenstein again. Bruce, I'm going to get 30 more yards.
And now after everybody watches the Masters, they're going to say, okay, I need to talk to Joe. I want to get in that mental state.
I can bring you back to July 14th, 2001. You're going to shoot 79 again. Joe, thanks so much. Stay in touch.
My pleasure. Nice to see you guys. Take care.
Joe Bosco. Golf instructor, Joe Bosco Golf. He showed me video of Fred Astaire playing golf, a movie. Fred Astaire had never picked up a golf club in his life, okay? And they shot this scene with music, and because he was just so he's Fred Astaire. He could have done it on a ceiling upside down. Right. He could have played golf. And he just takes a golf ball, and they have all kinds of golf balls all around, and he's just dancing and hitting golf balls because he was Fred freaking Astaire.
It's amazing.
It's been fun having the dance with you this morning, Carol.
It's been a lovely dance.
We'll be back for a final word, I think. Bruce Wolf and Carol Roth